courses in our curriculum that were large lectures before this. And, suddenly, these new courses that are supposed to be more, less lecture, more project-based or whatever because of just resources or faculty time, 2 of these 4 courses are now large lectures. Like, how did that happen? So, that was, I think in the group of people that worked on the change, everybody had different motivations. So for some people, kind of the project-based element of it was super important. For other people, there were other elements of it that were super important. So, things kind of just play out that way. Another thing that's happened that, isn't so great is, we sort of had this idea of, of team teaching the courses and kind of an apprentice model where we could bring new people in, and so the courses are still, I would say they're still team taught in that there's more than one faculty member assigned, but there's some new people that have just kind of been dumped in, so the old, the instigators or initiators, they've moved on to something else. There's some new people just kind of thrown in. So, the new people that are thrown in, they haven't been involved in any of the discussions over the last 3 or 4 years, and in some cases they're brand new faculty. So, and there's not going to be any kind of apprentice sort of thing. Maybe somebody will hand over a notebook of notes or something. So, definitely, a couple of things that have happened that aren't very satisfactory. It's a big undertaking. There's a lot of people involved, and maybe what I said before is, people had different, they sort of had different things in mind. I mean, there was definitely some shared vision, but people were excited about it for different reasons. So, different. It's turned out a little differently in some ways than what we were shooting for in the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's sort of a like we have a shared intent and a shared motivation, and then people are distracted from it, or other people are brought in that don't have that, or Shall we move on to structures, Linda?
Yeah, I was attempting, but I'm not doing very well.
Are we moving? Is that a structures thing?
Yeah, I was listening to what Michelle was saying, and one of the structures is that courses are scaled for some sort of savings, time savings, or effort savings. You have the large sections. And sometimes that structure disables the thing that you're trying to produce. It sort of sets you up for failure. It sets people up for going, oh, this really doesn't work. And it's really the structure of the course. I've got 400 people in the section, what have you, and that structure doesn't actually facilitate the thing you want to do. So there's structure that's scaled for kind of time. That's how I put it in there. But what other structures lead to these patterns that we don't have any time to do things?
We have the structure associated with accounting for our, like
things like being taught.
Here at Cal Poly, it's really hard to account that. Because what you do is you have the workload and you just divide it in half. Give half to one and half to another. And then it's actually twice that amount of work. So there's all structures about accounting for our time that are set up at a time, and we have to sort of accommodate those structures.
Yeah, there's a way in which the policies and practices are optimized for the individual to succeed, but not really for collective success. It's more how can an individual by themselves make the most of their own human resource. That's how it is at our school. I'm not sure about Michigan Tech.
No, I think it's probably the same here. Yeah, I mean, there's you have a certain number of teaching assignments per semester, and yeah, I think it works the same. Yeah.
And also
The sort of the retention and promotion process
is really about the individual.
Mm-hmm.
and often around technical, not pedagogical, or not curricular. That seems to service as opposed to some sort of professional development. At least that's true here. And I think it's true in other places too. So all the structures that are already set up around should you be promoted or should you be tenured put people at risk, really, like new faculty being thrown into a curricular change it's hard. It's be hard for them.
Yeah, I think all those things are true. You know, most of the faculty that have been involved are
The reward.
I was just going to say, most of the faculty that have been involved are a little more senior or whatever. So there's definitely recognition of demands on assistant professors, and not getting them involved early on. I guess there are some faculty in the department that think about course improvements and curriculum change as being part of our job, and then for many faculty, they think of it as being something extra. So that's something we've grappled with all along, and yeah, there's just a lot of imperfection. A lot of faculty have demanded extra money and release time, summer salary, this or that or whatever to do things. But there are a number of faculty that we just think it's part of our job, just like lots of other elements of our job. So yeah, I don't. There's definitely a lot of passion for doing some of these things. We've got there's a couple of very successful researchers in our department who have been involved with the curriculum change, and they're very passionate about it. But everybody kind of have their own rules they want to play by, I guess. Yeah, it's just a hard thing. The implementation, everybody's got different constraints and different things they're trying to accomplish overall with their work and their career, and so I don't really doubt the kind of the passion and the intentions of faculty, but they're trying to make it work for all the things they've got going on.
So is it the case that the way the policies are set up, people can make their own rules, or they can have their own value system? They can have their own interpretation of the rules? How is it that you get such a different conclusion about what's part of your job and what isn't part of your job? How is that?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I guess I think people can kind of make their own rules. In terms of promotion and tenure or raises, people aren't making their own rules. There's definitely certain things that are rewarded. And I don't know. That's just, yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that. Yeah, I think faculty, they do have, different value systems, and they're kind of, I don't even know how to think about it in a different way. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's such a large department, and in terms of like salaries, there's an algorithm, it's very quantitative in terms of salaries and teaching assignments and things like that. So I don't know that those things are the prime motivators for people, though. I guess I don't know how to respond to that. It's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know a different system. I don't know what it would look like for sort of a shared value system. I can't imagine what that looks like, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to get down to mental models, and one of the mental models is that, I'm the priority, whoever I am. I think this is one of the things that's not just at universities, but it's in our culture. The U.S. culture is very individualistic compared to, say, the Chinese culture or other cultures that have, even the Spanish culture, they have more a sense of the collective, of the community. Whereas I think the U.S. culture is really organized around the heroic leader, the individual who, through their own merits, has achieved, greatness on their own. And so I think it's just a cultural thing that drives that phenomenon in our institutions like higher ed. I mean, the grading system supports that. You're looking for the hierarchy of who is the highest performer, all of that stuff seems.
And also benevolently, the sort of an
sense.
underlying academic freedom as one of the models that we function under, that we can make choices about what we think is important. I mean, we can have policies and procedures, but there is a certain freedom for a faculty member to make those choices, which isn't, I don't think that's all bad, but it does happen.
I'm laughing at my terrible typing. I meant to say individual. Yeah, it's not all bad, but there are definitely consequences.
Well, also there's an underlying model that we, as faculty, have the knowledge and the expertise to decide what students should learn. I mean, again, I'm not saying that's all bad, but it is a sort of an underlying expert model, say, that we know what somehow or other, because of our position in society, we are better prepared to decide what students need to learn. So, I mean, that's a very deep underlying model, and we say, well, of course, that's how it is. And maybe it should be that way, but it is one of the models of higher ed.
Yeah, Liz, if I track that out here, I can imagine that down here there's a, oops, hold on. I'm trying to click with a bum finger here. So down here in this expert model, as essentially a value system or an assumed value system. You assume that it's, you're out to be number one. And what that does is create a set of systemic structures, policies, practices that enable you to be number one somewhere in your field, or minimize your effort in the classroom by creating economy of scale in terms of the time that the face time you have in front of students, so that you could be productive in some other way. And what that leads to is, essentially success begets more work. It doesn't actually give you more leisure time. And so that leads to this lack of intellectual space, lack of resilience, and I do think it leads to a dynamic where you're not patient for areas where you're not successful. It's a little bit like, I tried to brush my teeth with my left hand, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do my right hand now, because that's not really paying off in the way it's supposed to. And so I think that does sort of directly lead to this sort of persistence of non-change, as we are essentially ongoingly brushing our teeth with our right hand, because that's the most efficient, it's the most effective, we're good at it, it pays off. So you can see how these kind of pattern all the way up to the symptoms.
It's also really, I don't know, for me, it's very hard to see the underlying assumptions. Like to actually see something like even that higher ed should exist. We just say, well, of course it should. But that's an underlying assumption that very deep in mental models about how the world should function. And it's really hard to get to those. And I think that, and I don't know if this is right, Linda, but I have been functioning lately on the idea that really lots of the change might come in the area of the structures, changing in structures, because it's so hard to actually address and change mental models. It takes a long, long time to get to the assumptions, but I'm not sure if that's appropriate. I don't know. That's just kind of what I've been thinking of lately. Even though it's a high leverage place, it's really difficult.
So you're saying, Liz, that you think that the systemic structures is a point of intervention just because the mental models are so invisibly held. You can't directly intervene in somebody's belief system. That the result is, I think Michelle was describing something like this, where you said something earlier in the conversation where it seemed like after somebody tried something, it didn't change their belief about it. Or maybe I said that. Well, I think it's worth considering how mental models actually govern our actions and propagate all the way up through these events to produce these events. And one of the things that Liz and I thought would be useful is to try to actually go through an exercise where we were speaking from a particular mental model and just sort of about a common problem. And we thought that we would try that and try a couple of different ways of talking about that, and just to see how it was experienced. Does that sound like that would be useful to you, Michelle?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, kind of an example in a different context might be cool.
Yeah, I think the idea is that, for me, is that you can see mental models through language. So it's a possibility that you can see it through language. So we're actually doing a little bit cartoonized, like people might not completely have this kind of conversation, but maybe not. And we'll try not to laugh. When we were practicing, we were laughing, but okay.
we're thinking that we would, of course, one of the common things that you run into is this persistent lack of diversity in the STEM graduating population. And NSF often has targeted calls for addressing this issue. And we thought we would talk about that using it like it was in a cartoonized way. So we'll go ahead and start, and then we'll tell you when we shift, or maybe we shouldn't tell you. Okay. So. Okay. Liz, I'll tell you what I've noticed that we're not capturing the population of students that we want to in STEM fields. That we need some sort of plan of attack to really change the face of the troops on graduation.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some sort of students don't have all of the weaponry they might need in order to make it through the rigorous processes of our education, the engineering education. And there does need to be some strategy, or maybe even finding some allies to really make it through this battlefield that it's going to, we really need to diversify, help diversified students make it through the obstacle courses of the curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they oftentimes declare defeat early in the battle. The first physics course, or
and they become casualties. The first set of students become the casualties in the process, instead of the victors as we want them to as they walk across the stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if we could come up, we want some sort of plan, execute a targeted set of goals. I mean, it's a shot in the dark, but I think we could try it.
Yeah. Even just capturing ideas associated with this process from those who are participating, who are part of the Army, that is helping us maneuver. Like with the howitzer.
The what?
Howitzer. That was called? Howitzer. I don't know. I just saw that word.
All right. Shall we switch?
Okay.
All right. You want to start us?
Sure. So just thinking about the diverse set of students and how we might nurture and nourish them as they try to grow through the process of their education. Is there ways that we can mix and blend and really think about what are the different flavors that might go together that will attract, will have sort of a sweet aroma for the things we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering about, the recipe that enables success for everybody. What are the ingredients in the curriculum? Not just the meat and potatoes, but the dessert, the other side dishes. If you sift through all the content, what measures would you use of the things that are tasty? What measures would you use of the things that are, dry? Or
we could really look to reduce some of the content
Mm-hmm.
to really get to the tastiest morsels.
Yeah, because I think that not everybody has an appetite for ice cream.
Okay.
I just thought,
That would be.
all right.
All right. So
How was that for you?
Silly.
Well, yeah, good job. It's entertaining. It's sort of an interesting skit to have, like, faculty do at a retreat or something. You know, like every table could have a different metaphor, I guess. And, you know, talk about some issue, some sort of problem-solving, you know, session addressing some issue in the department. That'd be kind of fun. So, yeah, good job.
I like that idea. Just the diversity of being able to notice the way. I mean, that was so funny for us because it's so much easier to use the military words. We use them so much more often than the other set of words. It's really amazing, actually, how much easier it is to use those.
You see, you know, some kind of, you know, sports team kinds of things too. I mean, those would probably follow the military ones pretty closely, but, you know.
Yeah, things like marching orders.
Yeah. Yeah, plan of attack, strategy, and so on.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we might have ruined you now. Now you're going to go into a meeting and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, what metaphor are they using now? Yeah. I like that you're pointing out the metaphor of sports games or athletics. I think that's very common too. And I think it also definitely, because athletics often is sort of in the form of a war, you know, one team against another. It's just a controlled little war. So yeah, it's another very common metaphor.
I just think the notion of games, like war games, you know, sports games, that underlying that, I mean, it's pretty rare, but the Western notion is that win and lose. I mean, there's very few games that there's a winner, there's a loser. There's very few games that everybody wins, you know. Even the grading system we have isn't everybody wins. It's that it's set out to differentiate the winners and the losers. And we're asking about, you know, does this language actually have a kind of entailment? Does it reach down into our actual actions, our day-to-day actions, the decisions we make, the designs we put in place in our curricula?
Linda's going to share something that she found from the NSF recent publication, and just looking at it for the underlying model that they are using, at least in this publication. Was this a STEM education publication? Is that what it is?
Yeah, this is a, okay, I'll attempt to make it bigger, hold on.
Inspiring.
So in sharing my screen, oh, go ahead. Did you say something, Michelle?
She's frozen.
Let's see. Michelle, we sort of lost you, your visual at least. And now we lost your audio. She's paused. Oh, here. All right, I replayed you. Can you hear us, Michelle? Let's try the screen chat. Oops. Oh my gosh, my typing is horrible. Ooh. Oh, she's gone. All right. I think it's going. Oh, there she is. She looks like we have your audio, but
Sorry about that.
no problem.
It froze up for me.
It may have been my sharing the screen. I'll try it one more time, and if that happens, then maybe I won't share the screen anymore. But okay, you're still there? Okay, so this document is from the National Science Foundation on their Education and Human Resources Division, and it's about STEM education. And I just want to call your attention to some of the text down here. This one in particular, this right here, is a picture of an African American woman looking in a microscope. And what it says next to it is, programs that broaden participation in STEM capitalize on America's diversity. And then it goes on to talk about, so on, what it means. And then down here again, workforce ready to create and capitalize on science and technology. And then this title here, investing in tomorrow's innovators. And we're struck by this notion of capitalization, or capitalism, excuse me, and just looking at the definition of what capitalize means, it's capitalize on means take the chance to gain advantage from. And sort of the interesting image of the African American woman, and then this notion of capitalizing on America's diversity, kind of all in one little picture. And we're struck by that, and I'm wondering, how are they experienced by other people? These metaphors, these images kind of next to one another. I'm going to try to get
I mean, with issues around, I would say with issues around diversity, I don't know, my impression is that's going to, it's going to engage a lot of people. I mean, for people in the business world and, in an engineering industry, that's going to, engage them in wanting to care about this. I think it's just a matter of, fairness or social justice, maybe it just wouldn't engage as many people. So I don't know, I think messages like that, they're trying to play to a certain audience.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that it's kind of like using a metaphor that somebody understands, right? That somebody's familiar with. But I think there's also this sense that, are there consequences of using that metaphor? Are there, you know, a little bit like if we use a metaphor of capitalism and investment, then it's the metaphor that kind of got us into a lot of trouble, at least our planet into a bunch of trouble, because it's based on assumptions of unlimited growth, and is that really the model we want to be using in the future? But you're right, nobody would sort of be engaged or understand a different model. It's a dilemma. It is a big dilemma.
Do we mean nobody, or do we mean people with money? People with money would not connect with the metaphor of cooking, for example. I mean, if you're attempting to appeal to a particular audience, what is the value system of that audience? And it probably isn't, you know, nourishing people at the table. It's probably, as you see in the documentation of NSF, it's something about appealing to those who have power in a capitalist system. Does it perpetuate that same inequitable system or system dynamic?
And it's a little bit of do the ends justify the means? Like, we want diversity, but is it okay to enter into a system that really prioritizes the privileged in order to get diversity? It seems like it isn't. It seems like, but I could be, I don't know.
Or maybe it is not even a side of a moral question about, is it okay that, what about, do the means have to match the ends? So can you get, for example, peace through war?
Is it even possible?
Is it possible? Is it possible using a system that's like the industrial scale, or the industrialized models of the paradigms of economy of scale? Is that going to produce diversity, or is economy of scale actually structured to eliminate diversity? It's actually created, its aim is for monolithic, you know, uniformity, and that's actually how you get the scale, the economy of the scale. So it's starting to beg the question, can you get diversity if the means is to promote non-diversity?
Yeah, I'd have to kind of think a lot more about some of these issues. I mean, the idea about capitalism being something that sort of reduces diversity, like I don't know, you know, I don't know if that's true. You know, so what would a better metaphor be? You know, would there be things from kind of the natural world, or even just this idea that, like, diversity in and of itself has a value. I don't know. You know, I suppose, yeah, just thinking about something that has value. I mean, that could be a capitalist idea. It could be something related to nature and you know, systems in nature. I don't know. Those are complicated issues, I guess. You know, figuring out like metaphors to use or language related to that. No.
I think I know for us, one of the reasons why we're conscious is that in a change process with faculty, people come to the process with a diversity of values, a diversity of interests, a diversity of abilities. And we've been asking, how do you create the conditions so that everybody can succeed? And this means the person who has the mental model of, capitalism as like an extreme of, expert, only this way is the right way, versus somebody who has the mental model of, there are a bunch of ways that will achieve a diversity of results. How do you create the conditions to enable the success of all the different ideas? So one of the struggles is that this model over here, that is kind of a nurturant model, meaning it is the ultimate goal is to nurture the success of a variety of forms. How does that coexist with the model over here, which is a monolithic success? It's more of a, okay, no, this is how it's done. Everything else is wrong. So this model over here is the economy of scale, eliminates variation, whereas this model over here is set up to actually function with variation, with diversity. So there's a kind of a need to be awake to the models we're holding so that we can actually accommodate and achieve the success that we want. Recognizing diversity exists, how do you support it? Make sense? You want to go over that? Sort of, are you going to say something, Liz? No. We're looking at the time and thinking maybe we could sort of look forward. We don't know if we'll see you again. And it's okay if we don't. I just want you to know that. I'll say that it's, for me, I'm really enjoying this opportunity to actually think and talk to you and learn with you, Michelle, and with Liz always. But also, this is an experiment for us too. We don't know what happens in the summertime when you try one of those weird asynchronous things. So.
Do you want me to share my screen with the homework?
Yeah.
So I think there's 2 more sessions of this, right? Next Monday and Wednesday? Is that right? And so Monday is good. Wednesday I might have trouble making it. There's an ABET evaluator, and there's now like this, I'm an ABET team chair now, so there's this meeting next week, and like at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, I'm not quite sure what'll be going on, so it could be I can't come next Wednesday.
That's great. I mean, that's fine. I think that we have the diversity of obligations that we all have, and that's perfectly fine. It's been very nice, though, to have this conversations these last couple of days, so we look forward to Monday.
Well, it's nice to get a lot of, I guess, individual attention and, time to talk about my problems, so it's great.
Okay, so this is just a screenshot I brought up of my screen of the offline activities. So again, there's like a link to it. And so there's a couple videos to watch. And using the issue that we had in session 1 to develop a systems map of your issue using the iceberg model. So just sort of trying to get that iceberg model, just practice it again. Then we have another, what is it? So actually, maybe I didn't look at this that carefully. Another homework. Just using the concept of in my model when we're speaking. How does that feel when we just actually explicitly say we're holding a model of things? Do you want to say anything about that, Linda?
Yeah, so it might be, in my model, we have 2 more sessions together, and in my model, as a so a facilitator for the session, we might on Monday just revisit, are we serving Michelle? I mean, if she's able to come back on Monday, does she have any adjustments to the layout that she might like, given that she might not be able to join us on Wednesday? So in my model, that's the way we might make sure our attention is on serving her interests. I was just pretending to use that. I was using it.
But you were actually really asking.
I was asking, yeah.
Is there anything else to do differently, since you might not be here Wednesday?
So I guess I understand that homework. Were you asking me a question?
No, I wasn't. I was, well, sure. I mean, I was just saying explicitly that in my model, since we're doing this together, the thing that we would want to do in an action research kind of way is kind of recursively say, is this what we had intended? Is it serving the purpose we wish for? Are there adjustments to make? So in my model, we would actually practice that action research even as we learn this together, whatever we're learning here.
Okay.
Is there anything else anyone needs to say to be complete today? With this time, not complete in general, since that's a bigger job.
It's good. This is lovely. Nice to spend an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, thank you very much. I kind of wonder about the registration process for the Chautauqua. It's kind of funny. I don't really recall signing up for this, but Leonard was on the session last time. We had actually talked about it on Monday, and then it was like that day or later that day I got your email, and maybe I already signed up, but I hadn't put anything in my calendar about the days or anything, so. Yeah, I don't know what kind of feedback you can get back to the Chautauqua people, but maybe a little more, confirmation of registration or something, because I didn't know the days, or when I signed up, or I didn't really sign up, or I don't know. It was a little bit confusing. It worked out because like I said, it was a topic I was interested in, and Leonard was too. So anyway.
Is Leonard a colleague of yours?
Yes, Leonard is. He's an associate dean at Michigan Tech, and so kind of the associate dean on the educational programs side. So yeah.
Well, missed him today, but who knows what an associate dean is doing on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, great.
Right. And we don't know about the process either. The first time we've done it, and one of the things that we told them is when people sign up, they can actually give themselves a username, and the username can be very different from their name, and we have no idea, no way to find out who they are.
Oh yeah.
So we just blanket email whoever those usernames are.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is something about process that should be adjusted probably. And we will feed that back to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you Monday.
That would be great. Yeah. Thank you for your time. See you.
Yeah. Thank you for your knowledge and preparation, and definitely you've been through a lot of stuff that you've learned some really cool things from. So hopefully I can adopt some of that. So thanks.
All right. Bye.
I'm going to stop the recording here.
You want to